what we call the perceived data quality issue. So it's where you have your data consumers or your data users or whatever who believes there is a data quality issue, but they don't know what it is, right? So the numbers look wrong in a report or an application. The information doesn't seem to match what they have seen historically in other reports. It just seems like it seems out of date. Or maybe there's a disagreement on information between sources that one person, I'm getting a report from one office and another report from another office, and the numbers don't match. Or I'm just having whatever just general doubt about this. Okay, so in that case we have this trust issue that it ultimately has the same outcome as if it's like an actual data quality problem where you're missing a required field or any of those other things we talked about before. And this is an important thing to try to, if your goal is to build trust in your data and use of the data, is you want to celebrate when you hear about this. Like sometimes people think it's a bad thing when you find out that someone reports an issue with the data. If you can kind of flip that on its head and say, oh, this is awesome, we have a chance to improve this, this user's experience with our data and either fix the data or help them come along. So it's this customer service opportunity. And it's another way to think of this again as a help desk process. So if someone reports this problem, then you want to sort of feed it into the machine of your data quality initiative to get back to them and say, okay, yeah, this is what's going on, right? And either we're going to fix that or we're going to help you with it. So with this perceived data quality issue, and this is my favorite slide out of the bunch here. So and there's a lot to it, but again, please, when you get the survey, if you want a copy of this, say yes, I'd like a copy, and you get a PDF version. But when you have a perceived data quality issue or a reported data quality issue, you want to say, like, what is the true cause of this, and figure it out. So sort of put this into two buckets. An actual quality issue that something is wrong, right? Now, I didn't say wrong with the data, I said something is wrong. Or there's a user misunderstanding that they think there's something wrong, but they're just like they don't have the right context for what they're looking at, and that may be more of a training issue. So in terms of the actual quality issue, this can be broken down into kind of two different segments. The database integrity issues or business logic are mismatched between systems where there is something wrong with the data, potentially. Or there's an issue with the report or extract or with the glossary definition or logic that there's something wrong with the report or the thing that is taking the data and presenting it to the person. You're calculating something wrong. You have a wrong selection criteria or whatever in there. So these are things that would need resolution. Now on the user side, it could be that there's a lack of transparency or access to any documentation. So they're looking at a report or some extract or wherever they're looking at it, and they say this doesn't look right, but they have no way to understand, like, well, how is this calculated? What does this mean? What's the definition on it? So they're just having to go off their gut assumptions, which oftentimes are wrong, or like their understanding about the definition of something or how something is calculated is different than what this report is doing. But the report isn't wrong. It's just that, like, they've got a different, maybe they do need their own report, or maybe they just need to understand how this is going to calculate it, or they're not understanding the context. So a common one of this is what we call the time context issue, that I'm looking at this report and I say, hey, I thought I had, my department had $1 million in sales revenue this quarter, and it's only showing that I have $900,000 of sales revenue this quarter. Well, that's because the report is, being generated weekly or something. Like, it's not today's date, And then the scope issue, like, again, if I'm looking at that, maybe, I think it's covering my entire division, but it's only covering a portion of it because I don't understand what the selection criteria is. Or agency domain, that, like, this particular report is generated for some other purpose than what I think it's for. It's like being provided for some other thing, and it's using sort of different logic and different calculations. In general, I don't understand how the report or extract works. I don't understand what the selection criteria and filters are, or general overall report or logic or purpose. But the point here is that there's nothing wrong with the report, there's nothing wrong with the data. It's just that I think it should be, I think it's doing something different than it is. So on the quality side, on the actual issue side, the kind of actions you would take from this is that, if you've got the data related problem, something's actually wrong with the data, identify the scope or impact of that of the data that's incorrect. Do some root cause analysis, what's causing this data, root cause correction, like fix whatever that is. If you've got an integration or a data entry error or something, how do you avoid that continuing to happen? Do whatever sort of data cleanup or fixes need to be done, and then ongoing monitoring of that. In terms of the report, it might be, all right, we need to revisit those definitions or logic here. We need to, or fix the report or extract, and then, update the catalog or the documentation needed. In terms of user misunderstanding, that could lead to, either updating the documentation and curation if it's incorrect, or if it's not complete, or whatever, you can update that. Provide user training, either answer the question directly or educate them on how to access the documentation, or let them know that the documentation was updated. Or what is oftentimes every time is that a big thing that you could do is that if you've gone through the effort, and this is a important point to think about. If you have an overall initiative where you are building a business glossary and you are creating a report catalog, and you have this information documented about, for a particular report or a particular thing of data that explains what's the purpose of it, how is it getting calculated, what definitions are that, but that information is locked in some sort of, Google Doc or spreadsheet or who knows what, somewhere that the person who's looking at the report doesn't have access to or know that even exists or how to find it, that's not really helpful. So they're going to have other things. So you want to think about how to simplify or promote engagement with that documentation. So creating links directly on the report or explanations on that report, or wherever they're encountering the data, to say, here's how you can find out this information. So really trying to promote that exposure and visibility and transparency of that doc to help prevent that misunderstanding. Now, in my experience, and this is not, as a data-related company, I should avoid, doing anecdotal data descriptions here. But in my anecdotal experience, if you are working with an organization or a set of individuals and they're expressing to you issues around data quality, they'll usually use words like, the data is bad, or the data are bad, or we can't trust the data. That the majority of the issues that when they talk about that, are caused by this sort of user misunderstanding, or even kind of issues with reporter extracts. It is much more rare that the problem is actually issues with the underlying data. And again, I will point out that there is no difference at all in the outcome of whether or not your data is being used to drive decisions, if the issue is related to the fact that they just don't understand it and have confusion, or if the report is broken, or if the data is wrong. It has all the same impact. So you need to put the same amount of emphasis on each one of these. Now, I mentioned that from the beginning that there's a variety of sort of tools and approaches. And a lot of times when people think about data quality, they think about something where I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to point it at my database and it's going to tell me everything that's wrong with that database. And there are tools that do that. I will tell you that the Data Cookbook isn't designed to focus on that. We're focused on sort of more holistic, rules-based and issues-based analysis. But if you're focused on that database integrity issues, which is useful if that's a major thing. But I will tell you that most databases now, not all, most tend to do a pretty good job at enforcing their own database rules. SQL and Oracle and things like that do. We work with other systems that are less, more flexible than that. So if that's your main focus, then those types of tools will limit the scope of what the data quality things you're able to address to just these database integrity issues, right? That's not to say that, again, that it doesn't add value, and it would kind of maybe set a baseline to know that, hey, at least we don't have these issues. But I will say that if you set out and think that doing this evaluation is going to solve your data quality problems at your institution, your organization, I think you're going to be disappointed with the overall outcome of that as well. So you have to think about all these other potential problems.